everybody, I'm Corinne Blackstone and welcome to my craft room. I'm so happy to have you here today. Before we get started, be sure that you're subscribed here on YouTube. That way you don't miss out on any fun, crafty content we have coming. Today's tutorial is one that I'm really excited about to share with you, and we're going to be doing some screen printing, but we're going to screen print multiple shirts. This is the question I get the most when I make any screen print tutorial is, how do I do more than one shirt? And it's honestly so simple. So I made 4 shirts here all at the same time. Now you will need a few supplies in order to do this. You're of course gonna need your shirts. I got mine from shirtspace.com. I will link it down below along with a coupon for you to save when you shop. And then you're also going to need some screen printing ink. I recommend Speedball. I also recommend having cardboard or a piece of heavy cardstock. This is for in between your shirt to prevent any of the paint bleeding. You're going to need some sort of scoop or spoon for your ink. I just use a cheap plastic spoon that I can wash and reuse. You'll need a squeegee. You can use a small one like this, or you can get the large squeegee from Speedball. I'll link again everything down below. And then you're going to need your screen. Again, mine is from Speedball. This one is my favorite. I found that it's really held up. I've had it for years. The screen has held up really well. I've changed the screen out. I've put the original screen back in, and everything still works perfectly with it. So I do highly recommend that screen. And then you're gonna need some permanent vinyl to use with this. You could use removable as well. Either one will work. I just prefer permanent. And then you'll need a source of water in a way to clean this when you're done. Now I'm gonna go through every step. I'm gonna show you how we set up the design to work, and then I'm gonna show you how to apply it to your screen, how to apply the screen printing ink to your shirts, how to do those multiple shirts, and most importantly, how to heat set them. If you don't heat set them, the ink will wash off of your shirts. And one thing that I really love about screen printing is the longer you wear it, the more you wash it, the softer the ink feels, and eventually it just feels like it's dyed the fabric and there's no ink on the shirt. So without further ado, let's get started. We're going to be using this design for our screen print, and we're going to just take out the center, which is that orange, because we're going to do multiple shirts and I want to do just the one color, but you do you. If you want to do both colors, I'll put a link down below for a video that shows you how to do multiple colors. But what we'll do is we're going to click download, and we're going to save this into our folder, and I have a Halloween folder, so I'm going to go ahead and save that. Now, once you've saved it, you want to go ahead and open it, and then you want to extract the folder. So you just click extract all and click extract. Once it's done that, it'll open up your folder, and then you can find which one you want to use. I like to click and view the large icons because it'll show you the PNG. And you can see that this one has options. It has the plain black one, the plain white one, or the one that has the layers. We're going to use Halloween Black over in Cricut Design Space. So let's head over there. On your canvas, you're going to click upload, and then you're going to choose upload image. Now I'm going to drag my file into my design space. And we're going to use that Halloween Black SVG. Now it is going to look a little bit blurry. It is not. It's just design space. They have, whatever reason, an issue when you're uploading. And I know a lot of people worry that it's going to come in really ugly, but it doesn't. I promise it comes in really nice. Now for this, we're going to size this just to an adult large shirt. If you're making like really big differences in sizes, so like you're making kid sizes and adult sizes, you'll want to have 2 different versions for that. But for this, we're going to just do an adult large, which I usually do at about 9.5, maybe a little bit larger depending on the design. So I'm going to make this one 9.5, well, 9.62 wide, and it ends up being about 6.15 tall. So that is perfect. Now we're going to be cutting this on a adhesive vinyl. But when you do this, you put the adhesive vinyl on the back of your screen so that when you're taking your ink and running it across, you're not going to accidentally damage the vinyl. So for that reason, we need to flip our design, and we want to flip it horizontally, which is basically mirroring your design. Now I've got this red thing because my joy is selected, and I'm going to be using my Cricut Maker. So don't worry about that. Just make sure you use the right machine. Now from here, all I'm going to do is I'm going to save this, and I'm just going to call it Spooky Screen Print. And apparently I didn't want to type my S, and we'll hit save. Then all we simply have to do is choose Make on our Make screen. Now this is one thing that I do, but you don't necessarily have to, but I do think it makes it a little bit easier. I'm going to take this design and I'm going to just move it a little bit so that I have some space along the top and along both sides. That way, when I put this onto my screen, I have a little bit of vinyl around the edge. We're still going to need to use some painter's tape to cover up any areas that we don't want paint to go through, but this is going to allow us to have a little bit more space. Now you can use your entire 12 by 12 sheet if you want to. You do whatever works best for you, and you'll kind of figure that out as you make a couple screens. But for me, I usually do like a little over an inch, so I just kind of line it up with that inch mark, and you can just kind of put it wherever, just so that you have that little area around your stencil. Now, when we go to weed this, we're going to weed this a little bit differently than we would if we were making a decal. So you're going to take out all of the parts that you want the paint to go through. So anything here that is solid that we can't see the grid lines through is what we're going to weed out. So the stars, the words, and then the outline of the word spooky. Now, it'll make a little more sense once you see me doing it, but I always like to explain that to you here as well, just so you kind of get a visual. But it does make a little more sense once you actually start doing this and making it. So let's head over to the Cricut machine. I'm going to be using StarCraft HD for this. Now, you use whatever color you want to for your vinyl. I tend to just use whatever color I have a lot of, or is maybe a color I just didn't like. So you can use whatever color. The vinyl does not matter. Just use something that you're not going to be sad that you have to throw it away. We're going to cut our vinyl for our screen print. And like I said, this is just StarCraft, nothing fancy. I'm just going to use a color that I have a ton of. If you've ever watched some of the other videos I've made where I do stencils, or I use this for any kind of thing like that, you're almost always going to see this color because I accidentally ordered a 10-yard roll, meaning I have 30 feet of this. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it with this. We're cutting this on the vinyl setting. And again, this is StarCraft HD. I'm going to link everything that we're using down below so you can find it all super easy. Now, weeding this is done a little bit differently. So normally you would weed where you want to keep the design. But for this one, we want to weed anywhere that we want the paint to go through. So I want to keep the center part of the letters, but I'm going to take out this offset shadow section here because I want the shirt to be painted in this area. Now, I want to make sure that I take out the letter centers as well on this one. So I want to get the center of the P out. Then same thing with this one. I want to actually have the paint go through where it says era. So I'm going to remove the vinyl where the word era is. But for this one, the letter centers will stay in. Then I'm going to take out these two little stars. And then up here at the top, we're going to get rid of the word in and the word my. I'm going to be very careful on this Y here because this is kind of a thin spot right here. And then we also have the little dot for the Y. I just want to make sure that stays down. And then I'm going to get rid of the stars that are up here as well. Because now when we put this on to our screen, the areas that are white is where the paint will go through. So I'm going to get this off the mat, trim it down just a little bit because I don't need all of this area. And then I'll show you how to apply this to your screen and we'll get ready to screen print some shirts. We are ready to attach our vinyl over onto our screen. So I'm using a Speedball screen. There's lots of options, but I'll link what I use down below. Now this can fit either way. So I can fit it with the screen in like the horizontal position, but I'm gonna need a lot of tape to kind of cover up the areas that ink might go through. But instead, if I use it in the vertical version, I'm not going to need nearly as much tape because my vinyl is going to cover a lot more space and it just gives me a little more space to work with. So I prefer to kind of do it that way. The screen can go either direction. There's not really a right or wrong way. But the first thing that we'll need to do is apply some transfer tape to our design. Now, with my transfer tape, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this out. And I want to get it so that it's as big as my design. And then I'm going to cut it down. Now you guys know normally I would put my design on it before I cut it, but I want to de-stick this transfer tape a bit before I use it because the vinyl can be a little bit tricky when it comes to sticking to the actual screen because that is a fabric. So what I like to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to stick it to my table just a couple of times. You could stick it to a wall or your shirt, whatever whatever you got really that will de-stick it a bit is what I recommend. You can also just simply like take your hands and kind of pat over it. There are lots of ways to de-stick this. Now I do have quite a bit of animal fur on my shirt, so sticking mine to my shirt will probably de-stick it pretty good because I do have quite a bit of fur and fluff from some yarn apparently. So you just want to get this so it's not quite so sticky. Like I said, lots of ways to do that. I just like to get it a little less sticky. And I do this a couple of times. You don't want it completely not sticky, but just to lose some of that stick. Then I'm going to go ahead and place my design right down onto my transfer tape. Now I'm going to grab a squeegee, and we'll use the same squeegee. You can see the squeegee's a little dirty. I use this squeegee to do my designs. I don't know where my big long squeegee is, so I just use this small one and it's fine. But you can get the really long one from Speedball if you prefer, but you can also just use one like this. Now once I've done that, what I want to do is I'm going to peel off my design just like I would any other time with transfer tape. I just peel that backing off, and I'm just going to kind of take my time. I want to make sure all those letter centers stay down. I just lost a little one, so we'll go ahead and get that pressed back down. You want to make sure all those little pieces stay stuck, just like, again, anytime you do any sort of decal. Now from here, you'll see you have this sticky side up. I want you to take your screen. You're going to place this down. Now, I personally like to try to get it fairly even, and I also like to try to get the design as straight as I can with the frame. I'm not so concerned about the like vinyl itself in the frame, but I do want to get the design pretty even with my frame so that it's pretty straight. For me, I think that helps me get it a little more where I want it to be. Now you'll notice I do have a bigger gap at the bottom now, and that's okay. That actually for me is what I prefer because this is going to sit a little closer to the top. So for me, it'll be easier for me to line it up onto my shirt. Now I'm taking my squeegee and I want to run it over my screen. And you're just going to burnish this again, just like you would when you do any kind of vinyl decal. Go in a couple different directions. And now you're going to flip it over because our next task is to remove the transfer tape. Now this can be a little tricky because like I said, this doesn't really love to stick to the screen. So you want to go slow. And what I do is I take my hand and I'm gently holding my vinyl down as I'm pulling my transfer tape back. Now your vinyl may lift a little bit. That's okay. Just kind of hold it down, push it down, and help it come off. Sometimes it really likes to stick and other times it just might not. It's just sort of dependent on the day. I have some that'll stick really well, and then others that give me so much trouble that I just want to scream. So I'm going to go ahead and get this peeled off. I got a little lift there. But don't worry, if you get a little lifting, we're going to go back over this. It's just this part, you just want to make sure all those letter centers stay down and you don't get like too much lifting on your design. Get this transfer tape all the way off. And now what I want you to do is you're going to kind of take your hand and just gently go over the edges with your finger, and that's just to kind of help it stay back down. I'm going to flip it back over, and you're going to burnish this again. And the reason you're burnishing again is because when you lifted up that transfer tape, you may have caused a little bit of a bubble or a little bit of a wrinkle. So this is just a nice extra step to make sure that nothing is going to come up. Now I want you to flip this back over, and we're going to add some tape to this to help prevent any kind of like bleeding. So you can just use painter's tape, masking tape. You can use other vinyl if that's what you got on hand. But what you want to do is you want to take your tape and you're going to put it in places where the ink might bleed. So I've got a little area right here where my vinyl doesn't go all the way to the edge. So I just want to add some tape there. I made my tape a little long for this section, so I'm just kind of ripping it. And then I'm just going to kind of check over here and up here. There are no spots there, so I'm good there. Now you want to cover up this whole area down here at the bottom. Now I'm going to run out of this tape, so I am going to have to go and get some more. But again, you're just going to cover this whole bottom section, and you want to make sure that your tape goes all the way over the base of your screen, so the wood portion of your screen, and then you also want to make sure that it covers any areas between the vinyl on the side, so you don't want to see any of your screen. We have one more step before we can really start screen printing. So I got 4 different color shirts. They are all Gildan brand, but it really doesn't matter. That's kind of the nice thing about screen printing. But one thing that you're gonna want to make sure that you do is place something inside your shirt so that your ink won't bleed through. You can use everything from those t-shirt forms to cardstock, whatever may work, but if you're using cardstock, you'll need something a little bit thicker, not like copy paper. This is about an 85-pound cardstock, and it works just fine. So what I do is I just kind of pre-fill this so that my shirts have that cardstock piece inside of them. It's just a little easier if I just do it, all at once. So let me get the cardstock inside all the shirts, and then we can get started with our screen printing. We're gonna start with the red shirt, and what you're gonna do is take your screen and you're going to center it onto your shirt. Now, I will say that I do use a quick little trick for centering my designs, which involves some painter's tape, because sometimes this isn't always exactly centered, although mine's pretty close. But what you can do is you take a little piece of your painter's tape and you find the center of your design, whether you're gonna measure it, whether you're just gonna use your hands, whatever the case may be. And I just sort of mark that spot. It just makes it easier for me to visualize where center is based on the collar of the shirt. And then remember that you want your design to be about 3 fingers down from the collar. So the frame on my design should sit right on to my collar. Then all I need to do is kind of center it based on the collar spacing, and I can use this to kind of help. Now keep in mind the tag's not always going to be center, so I like to visualize it with this edge right here, and then I just sort of look and see, does it look centered? Does it look straight? And I think it looks pretty good, so I think we're good to go. I just want to make sure that that's pushed down. That looked like we had a little gappy gap. Now I'm going to be using Speedball paint. This is their fabric paint. I'll link down below everything that I'm using. It's been a while since I've used this, so it might be a little tight to get the lid off. But I'm just going to grab that lid, take that off, and you can see I've used quite a bit. But I've had this for a long time, and this ink lasts forever. Now what you're going to do is I recommend grabbing a spoon, or something you can wash. Wouldn't use your good spoons, but a plastic spoon is great. And I wash these off and reuse them because I'm not a wasty girl. I want to be sure that I'm not wasting any product or any of my materials, because you can totally come back and reuse. So I'm gonna put the spoon back in. Now I do have a piece of cardstock up here on the corner of the table to hold all of my dirty stuff so that I don't end up getting anything anywhere. So you've put the ink across. Now you don't need a lot of ink, which is so nice. I've got my cardstock set so it's under my design, and all I'm going to do is take my squeegee and I'm just going to pull straight down. And you do want to use a little bit of pressure when doing this, and I'm just going to pull that ink straight down over my design. You want to make sure that you cover your entire design, and you can kind of go over it a couple times. Once you've got your whole design covered, I want you to take the extra ink and you're going to scrape it back into the jar, because again, we're not going to be wasteful. And I want you to go back over this and get any of that pooling of the ink that might be on your design, and I want you to get that off, and then do the same thing where you're going to just scrape it off into your jar. Then set the dirty squeegee and the jar over on your table to the side. Now, sometimes you might get a little ink on your hands. I want you to be aware of that. Either have some baby wipes present to wipe that off, or make sure that it is completely dry before you do this next step. So mine is fully dry. Now we need to take the screen off of our first shirt. This is super easy, but what you're gonna do, I'll scooch this up a little bit so you can see. I'm gonna take my hand and I'm gonna use my thumb and my forefinger, and I'm gonna hold my shirt down in this bottom corner of my screen. Then what I'm going to do is take and lift my screen straight up. So I'm just going to kind of bend it and pull it up, and look at that, it's perfection. Now you have this screen and you can see that there's no ink anywhere on the bottom. I want you to set your screen to the side, and I want you to set it upside down so that the part with the ink on it, the screen part, doesn't touch anything on your table. And you're gonna need to move your design unless you have like a lot of space where you can lay your shirts out. But because I'm filming this, I don't. So I'm gonna grab my shirt really carefully and I'm gonna set it over to the side. The reason we set it over to the side is because our shirts need to dry for about 4 hours before we can heat set our ink. So now I'm gonna get my green shirt and I'm gonna grab the cardstock and make sure that that is set to where I need it to be. And then you wanna make sure, of course, your shirt has no wrinkles in it. You gotta be careful. And again, we're gonna take our screen. Now with this one, we're not gonna be able to move it around that much because you don't wanna get any of the ink all over your shirt where it doesn't need to be. So you're gonna need to be real confident where center is. So that's why that painter's tape can really come in handy. So before you set it down, you're gonna kind of hold it up with your fingers and you're gonna just get it adjusted where you want it, and then you're gonna set your screen down. Then you're gonna come through and do that same thing again. Now again, I'm gonna end up with ink on my hands. I am not a girly that cannot get ink on my hands when I do this. And you're gonna place that ink across your screen. Now again, I just use like a spoonful. If I don't have a ton on one end, that's okay. I can pull ink from the other sections. So you're just gonna do that same thing. Pull this down, and you wanna make sure again that you're covering the whole design. So you wanna make sure you're getting everything from the top to the bottom. Once I'm sure I've covered, again, I will just scrape that extra right back into the jar. Because again, this doesn't take a ton of ink. Then I'm gonna come up here and I wanna pull any of the pooling that I've got and get that off. And then again, just put it back in the jar. Now you'll do the same thing for all of the shirts. You're not gonna do anything crazy or different for any shirt that you're doing. It's all gonna be the same exact process. Now again, I check my hand, see if I got any wet ink. I don't, I'm good. Put my hand down on this corner, lift her up, and look at her, she's beautanimous. She's beautiful. So now again, I'm gonna move this, lay this out to dry, and I'll move to the next one. I'll go through the other two quickly because it's all the same process. Now, while I'm finishing this shirt up, I just want to let you know, I'm not going to show you cleaning this because I've shown it in a ton of my other videos, and I'll link those if you want to watch me clean the screen. But you will need to make sure you clean your screen while your ink is still wet. If not, you can damage your screen, which of course we don't want to do. Now, I got a ton of ink on my hand because I got some ink on the edge of my jar. So like I said, baby wipes or paper towels, whatever you got, something to clean your hands. If you don't got nothing, well, like me, you gotta wait till it dries. So all you'll need to do to clean your screen is to just run it under some lukewarm water until the screen comes out clear when you're rinsing. Your vinyl will come off at that time. Just make sure that your vinyl does not end up down your drain. At that time, you'll also want to clean off your squeegee and your spoon and get all of the ink and stuff off of those as well. Now I'm gonna go ahead and lay these out. They're just laid out on my floor to dry. And then I'm gonna show you how easy these are to heat set because it's so simple. For your last step, once you've allowed this to dry completely, you are going to heat set this. Now I'm going to be using my heat press, but you can use an easy press or even a home iron for this. For a home iron, you want it set to the cotton setting, and then for heat press or easy press, you want to go between 320 and 340, and you want to press this between about 20 to 30 seconds. So that's going to heat set the ink so that when you wash the shirt, the ink does not come off. You'll do this for each of your shirts, and I'm going to just go ahead and do that process super quickly for you, and then I'll show you what all of our shirts look like. Here's everything all finished. If you guys have any questions, please let me know in the comments down below. I'm always happy to answer those for you. I've linked everything that I used in this video below in the description. That way you can find everything so you can create your own screen print shirts. I really love screen printing. It looks a little more complicated than it is. It is very easy to do. Just make sure that you cover your entire design with the ink so that you don't have any missing parts. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and as always, happy crafting.